Good morning. Professor Manoj, are you there?
Yeah, I am here. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. First of all, I really just apologize. Actually, there are some network issues going on these days in our university. There are some jammers installed over there, so I'm extremely apologetic.
Yeah. So no problem. So we understand in technology there is many limitations, and sometimes suddenly it create a lot of challenges to us. But first of all, good morning to each and everyone. Today morning we are very fortunate. We have Dr. Sumeer from University of Kashmir, the last top portion of the country. And sir, really we are very happy today. We starting our session with you. So already we are late. So without taking much of time, I just introduce you to the participant and we will start. So dear participant, Dr. Sumeer Gul, he is a associate professor in Department of Library Information Science in the University of Kashmir. Very renowned researchers and very one of the, we can say, the best researcher in the country in library information science. Published many papers in Springer in Nature, elsewhere, Taylor and Francis, Emerald, Sage, UNESCO and IGI publications. He has very high citation with I10 score is H index 14 in Scopus and Google Scholar. So sir is also associated with many administrative posts. He is now presently coordinator of UGC HRDC in his university, and also he is a coordinator of the Directorate of the Internal Quality Assurance University of Kashmir. So with this brief introduction, biodata is very big. It will take a lot of time to explain. So with this, we are very happy today morning you are with us, and today you are going to deliver your lecture to our participant. So with this, I welcome you, and behalf of the Mizoram University and HRDC Mizoram University, I welcome you in our 5th faculty induction program. With me, Professor Bhartendu Singh is there. Basically, he belongs to the Commerce Department, Professor Commerce, Senior Professor in the Commerce, and the co-coordinator of this program. So he is also joining with me. So welcome you. Now I am handing over the session to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Manoj Verma, for just giving me this opportunity to be with you. And equally, I'm also just thankful to Professor Bhartendu Singh and all the participants for just having me here. And it's really a privilege that we belong to North and you are from Northeast. So it's something like very much I think lovable to just interact with the people from Mizoram, and maybe some other participants will be from some different states also and UTs also. So first of all, I just want to thank the Mizoram University, Dr. Manoj and Professor Bhartendu for giving me this opportunity to just share my experiences related to an important topic, which basically pertains to the academic publishing and scholarly communication. Now, since we are all aware about that, whenever we just land into academia, or whenever we are just intended, or we just want ourselves to be a part of academia or higher education, so these are some of the names that automatically come to our mind. So Elsevier, Wiley, Taylor and Francis, Royal Society of Chemistry, Sage, Emerald, Cambridge, Oxford, Springer Nature. So automatically these are the names that basically just come into our mind when we just want to publish our research works, since we are in academia. And being a part of research, it's one of the important phenomenons to have a sustainability of ours. Before I start, I just want all the participants, if it is possible, can you please keep your videos on if you are comfortable, so that I just want this session to be a bit interactive. And since you're all learned participants, you are all experts, you're all professors in your respective fields, in your respective domains, so you're all good in your subjects. Can some of the participants first of all
Excuse
sure
me, Dr. Sumeer.
Sure,
Actually,
sir.
all the participants, as per the policy of the HRDC, they are in webinar mode.
Okay, fine.
Because online many times some disturbance is coming, large number of the participants. So they are in webinar mode, and their queries and other discussion we are doing by the chat box and question and answer box, sir.
Okay, sure. So whenever we are just talking about the academic publishing mode over there, is the screen visible, Professor Manoj?
Visible, sir.
Okay. There are so many reasons that why we just want to publish. People feel that like we just want to communicate the results of our research to our peers, our mentors. Some feel that it helps us in the advancement of our careers. Like we are all professors here in this group. So we just want to excel in our academic fields. So surely once we publish, University Grants Commission has given us a nod that we just want to attain better API scores, and getting published it in a reputed or a well-renowned journal that will surely enhance the advancement of our careers. Some surely write for the personal prestige. It gives me some sort of inner like happiness that I'm just writing. Even people are of the opinion that they gain funds out of research, and even the financial rewards also happen when it comes to writing your research papers. Now, we are all aware that whenever we just write for a particular journal, you are able to see on the screen, it's a man who is just proposing a girl, and her friend intends that, okay, she is to be proposed. And just see the face expression of that lady, who is the friend of the girl who has been proposed by the gentleman, that we basically feel the same,
इस
like
टाइप
we
of
feel the same.
एनिमेशन हम कैसे डाल सकते हैं पीपीटी में?
Sorry?
Oh.
Hello?
You continue, sir. You continue.
Okay. So when we are just talking about the lady over here, she gets dejected because she has been rejected by the gentleman. Now, tell me, you can just drop it in the chat box that when you just landed your first paper with Elsevier or Taylor and Francis or Emerald, Sage, or any other reputed publisher, how many of you got a rejection stamp or a rejection notice, and you are facing the same sentiments that the lady in the white frock is just facing? You can just drop it in the chat box, so that I just want to see that, okay, it's not only me who has been rejected by the publishers, but you are also having a rejection at any point of your careers. You can just drop it in the chat box over there. So surely once a rejection note happens, you may be facing this type of situation. You just want to have a bang on your computer and get it just torn into pieces, because you get frustrated that, okay, it was my paper, I had written it with so much of zeal, with so much of enthusiasm, and to hell with the editor, to hell with the publisher, or to hell with the journal. Why they have rejected my paper? So I think many a times we feel that the editors or the publishing units, they have some sort of animosity with us, but it's nothing like that, because the error, the problem lies from our own sides. We have to introspect ourselves. We have to see that, okay, the faults are on our sides. It's not like any of the editors who's from UK, they may be from Switzerland, they may be from Germany, they may be even from Pakistan, Bangladesh, or some other country. So they have no animosity with us as an editor. So errors are there in our paper. So we have to accept that there are problems, not with the editor. So it's a problem that's lying with my paper. It's like Dr. Rajni has said, I had the same kind of experience at the time of writing manuscript. Sir, thank you, appropriate presentation. So surely it's not me. So Dr. Rajni has also faced the same problem. And like she was all hell-bent that we always hate the editor. So we don't, like कहते हैं ना कि अपना चेहरा ना बदला गया, इंसान फिर आईने से खफा हो जाता है. So surely we have to just execute the changes in ourselves. हमें दूसरों से नफरत नहीं करनी है, एडिटर से नफरत नहीं करनी है. We have to accept that, okay, the problem lies from our side. It's a fault that is in our paper, maybe in our presentation, in our language, in our methodology, or any other component of our paper. So research apprehensions are always there, that whenever we are just talking about research, I know that like when we are just talking about research, there is always an apprehension that if you just want to stay alive in the academia, if you just want to stay alive in your academic endeavors, you have to publish. Otherwise, you will face the fate of this teddy bear who is a headless entity. Like we know Shakespeare because of his works like Othello, Macbeth, or Twelfth Night. We know Darwin because of his Darwinian laws, the laws that he propounded. We know Mendeley because of the Mendelean table over there. We know like Neil Bohr because of the atomic structure over there. So there are so many authors, because of their contributions, they are still alive in our brains, in our minds. So in academia, if you just want to stay alive, not as a professor, but as a researcher, you will always be recognized for the times to come. Even after hundreds of years, Dr. Rajni will be represented in her institution. Dr. Rajni, can you please specify in the chat box, like to which subject or the domain or the university you belong? Dr. Rajni, if it is appropriate enough, you can just drop in a message in the chat box, like to which subject you belong or to the institution to which you belong. Because the subject which Dr. Rajni represents or the institution Dr. Rajni represents, she won't be recognized as Dr. Rajni over there. But once Dr. Rajni starts writing the papers, be it with Elsevier or Springer or any other national publisher over there, even after 100 years, her students will read her work, her scholars will read her work, and she will stay alive in the hearts and minds of people even after hundreds and thousands of years because of her work. The same way we are still remembering Shakespeare, Wordsworth, Coleridge, John Keats, or even Neil Bohr, Rutherford, Charles Darwin, Mendeley, or any other researcher for that sake. So when we are just talking about research, it's always a cyclic kind of activity. So I think research is not only about publishing a research paper. So it's not only about just getting published. It's always about getting published, then preparing your manuscript. So it's a sort of like cyclic type of activity. Right from the time you are finding a right kind of journal, then you prepare a manuscript of yours. You submit and revise your manuscript. Surely usually people feel that, okay, we have now submitted and revised our manuscript and it has now been accepted. So acceptance of a manuscript, it's not the end of the world. You have to promote your work, like the way we are just seeing that many of the Bollywood celebrities, when Gangubai Kathiawadi was released, it was Alia Bhatt, Ajay Devgan, and all the crew of that movie that basically promoted their movie prior to its release, because they just wanted that this movie should really make an impact. Because once you promote your work, promotion makes it much more applaudable among the masses, and they read your work, they get sensitized because of your work, and ultimately the last step is to monitor the impact of your work. So you have to just monitor the impact of your work. So this kind of activity is an ongoing activity, I think, with every researcher. You write one paper this year or two papers for this specific year, or three or four or five papers. So surely you will always go through these phases, which are basically the determinant phases or the life cycle phases of your manuscript publication. Let me start with the first step that all pertains to your finding a very right kind of journal. I think when we are just talking about finding a right kind of journal, it's all about just a very tedious or a very I think it's a very clever type of activity or a very tricky type of activity to find a very right kind of journal. So make one thing sure, whenever we just are writing for a particular journal over there, it's always that we have our works, because you write your paper and you are all aware about the subjective entity or the subject representation of your papers there. So either your research paper will be a reflection of social sciences, or it may be a reflection of humanities, or it may be a reflection of science and technology. So because your paper is just like your baby, you have nurtured it, you have just propounded your paper. So you know that if your paper is written by you will first of all decide that whether my paper will be a candidature for the journals that belong to the field of social sciences, humanities, science, and technology. But nowadays, especially when we just talk about national education policy over there, when we are having cross-discipline based research, people from library sciences, they can work with people from social work, people from say pure sciences, they can work with say politics, political science people, people from languages, they can even work with people from computing sciences, because we have computational linguistics as one of the emerging fields. So you should be aware about the fact that what is the subjective domain of my paper. So in accordance to the subjective domain of the paper, either you will select a journal from social sciences or humanities or science and technology. Apart from that, I always propagate that whenever you are writing as a researcher for the first time for any of the journals, it's always advisable that you follow the instruction for authors. Are you able to see on the screen something that is blinking in red over there? That is basically labeling the instruction for authors. You can drop in the chat box either yes or no, so that I may get a notion that it is basically visible on your screens. Dr. Manoj, is it visible on the screen?
Yes, sir. Visible.
Okay.
Blinking.
So what instruction for authors is all about? Say, suppose tomorrow you just want to visit a country like Switzerland, Germany, or any other country for that specific sake, about which we are not aware of. Maybe we are not acquainted with the language, with the custom, with the folklore, with the dressing sense of that country, or even with the eating habits of that specific country. It is basically the travel guides or the tour agents who basically sensitize us about the country, like what type of clothing should we just carry on when we are traveling to some native place or some other place over there, what type of food stuff or what type of say other custom based phenomenon should we carry on with ourselves, so that we will be a fit in that specific country. It's Dr. Shantanu Saurabh, he has said yes. Okay, thank you. Okay, Miss Dr. Rajni has said that, okay, she's from Crescent University, Chennai, Tamil Nadu, and she represents the subject commerce. So I'm of the opinion that Dr. Rajni will be represented after hundreds of years because of her work. So it's not because Dr. Rajni is beautiful, Dr. Rajni is all glorious in her appearance over there. So she will be represented through her academic works. She will be represented in her university through her research endeavors. So when I'm just talking about instruction for authors, it's basically a phenomenon that is basically exposing a researcher about the basic or the fundamental phenomenons of submission with a particular journal. Like we have different type of citation styles that are followed by different journals. Some may opt for APA, some may be acquainted with MLA, Chicago, Thurabian, or like we have different types of papers that we write. We are writing different types of papers like research papers, review-based papers, conceptual papers. Some of the journals accept the papers that are written in American English, while some accept the papers that are written in British English. So there are so many phenomena that happen with a particular journal. And I always advocate my researchers and my youngsters that you always follow the instruction for authors, because it's a gateway to this academia or a gateway to a particular journal that will just make your research endeavor much more easier. Apart from that, when I'm just writing for a particular research journal over there, I always focus on the targeted audience. Like, who is my audience? Because your audience is going to tell you like what type of stuff you are going to like write. If it is a very general type of paper, which if it is a very general type of say journal for that specific sake over there, we have to write in a very simple or a lucid language. But if it is a technical type of journal that is exclusively subject oriented, or it is a technical type of journal in the sense that it is oriented towards a particular category of, say, oncologists or library science people or commerce based people, we are supposed to focus on a very technical type of language because they do understand. Do you agree with me that if Dr. Rajni writes a paper for a particular journal that is exclusively meant for the people that are representing commerce, she will write it in a very technical language because people who are reading the journal or reading the paper of Dr. Rajni, they're all acquainted with the technicalities in terms of language when it comes to commerce. But if I am a reader of a journal, which is meant for every type of audience, be it from library science or commerce, management, clinical biochemistry, so it's like a sort of like multidisciplinary journal which is focusing or catering the needs of every sort of person over there. So Dr. Rajni has to take into confidence that I should make use of a language that is very lucid or that is very much easier to understand because journal is catering the needs of the general type of audience. So the targeted audience is going to specify that what type of paper you are supposed to write. Then publishing frequency has to play a very significant role. I'll just ask a question to you. You can just drop it as an answer in the chat box over there. I'm selecting two journals. One of the journal is there, which is published 5 times a year, and another journal is there, which is published only 2 times a year. What will be my priority? Will I put up my paper with a journal that is published 5 times a year, or the journal that is published only 2 times a year? Which will be my priority? Can you please drop in an answer in the chat box so that I'll get to feel that you are like listening to me or like going like you're just all attentive in the lecture over there. Okay, Mr. Dr. Barnali Thakuria has specified that the priority will be 2 times a year. Anyone else who can just drop in an appropriate answer? Because it was Dr. Barnali Thakuria. Dr. Nasifa, she has said that the one that is published 2 times a year. Dr. Barnali and Dr. Nasifa, can you please specify the reason that why 2 times a year is your priority? Can you please specify in the chat box that why 2 times a year is your priority? Because you have specified that you are going to make a selection or your priority will be a journal that is published 2 times a year. Can you please specify either Dr. Nasifa or Dr. Bardali, why twice a year is a priority for your work? Okay, till you just drop in the message of yours, I will just specify that my priority will be journal that is published 5 times a year, because journals which are having a very low frequency that publishes only twice a year, they will be selective in their papers and they always look for a very high quality paper that has been written by I think Dr. Rajni is all correct because she is of the opinion that practically the intention would be 5 times a year. The journal has more time to ensure the quality of their papers. But Dr. Nasifa, the papers that are selected by those journals which are having a lower frequency, they're very much selective in their research endeavors. They will always look for a very high quality paper. So if you have a very high quality paper on which you are having extra confidence, always prioritize a journal which has a lower frequency, but still I will always advocate to select a journal that has a higher frequency, because the acceptance rate for that specific journal, it is much more higher in comparison to the journals which are having a low publishing frequency. Dr. Shantanu Saurabh, you have said that quality matters at the end of the day. But what about the journals like Nature, Cell, Lancet that are having a very high publishing frequency, and at the same time, their quality is never of compromising nature? So publishing frequency should be always prioritized, that you should always look for the journals that are high on their frequency mode over there. Then type of article is going to determine that what type of journal you are going to select. Are you aware about the fact that many of the journals only accept review-based articles? You can drop in yes or no. Or many of the journals only accept, say, what we call as conceptual papers. Some of the journals only accept technical papers, some of the journals only accept invited articles only, or some of the journals only accept empirical studies or review based articles. So, or some of the journals accept the fusion of all. So maybe Dr. Shantanu has written an excellent research paper that is of empirical nature. But say a journal A is there, we have a journal A, suppose, which is only accepting what? So it's only accepting, say, review based articles. So once it is accepting only review based articles, you have to be very much careful that never waste your time in a journal that doesn't accept the empirical papers. So when you are aware of the fact that you know that the journal only accepts the empirical studies, we should never waste our time. So your focus should always be on the type of article which a particular journal is basically giving a preference to. And again, instruction for authors that will help you to see that whether the journal is accepting only review based articles or empirical studies or a fusion of all. Then when we write a research paper, I think we are all good researchers. Dr. Shantanu, Dr. say we have Dr. Nasifa with us, or we have Dr. Rajni with us, or Mr. Estrafel is there, or Dr. Barnali is there. So all of us have written research papers or empirical papers or review-based papers. So usually we try to cite someone else's work. So suppose if I'm just citing Dr. Shantanu's work, I'm citing Dr. Barnali's work. So citation is basically giving a bond between my work and the one that is being cited, is it? So it's basically a subjective bond that happens between the cited work and the citing work over there. And for every citation, we have a reference that is put usually at the end of a research paper. Now, don't you feel that the reference list that the previous papers have consulted or they have come up with, it can also act as a ready reference list for you people to make a better selection of the journals which previous researchers have selected, because already there is a bond between your work and theirs. So the papers that they have consulted and the reference list that they have given, so you can select an appropriate source from the reference list, and that will act as a ready reference or a handy reference for your research papers to make an appropriate platform for your research papers. Some of the journals only just are of the nature that they accept only the invitation based articles. Say suppose Professor Manoj, I know that he is writing for excellent journals like Online Information Review, Electronic Library, or the journals that are published from Sage, Elsevier, Emerald, because I have gone through many of the papers that have been written by your director, Professor Manoj. So he is an excellent researcher. So tomorrow, if he becomes an editor of a particular journal and he knows that, say, Dr. Shantanu is excellent on a particular domain of research, so he invites him to write a particular article for his journal. So some of the journals only believe that we only accept or we only publish the invitation based articles. So even if your papers are brilliantly written, they are all awesome, you should never waste your time in those journals which have an invitation based policy, because after 3 months or 2 months you will receive a rejection note that your paper is not fit for our journal because we only just publish the invitation based articles. Okay, we have three types of options to have access to a particular paper. Either the paper can be of open access nature, or it can be of subscription nature, or we may have some of the journals that offer a hybrid mode, a journal that is giving an access option for both open access articles as well as subscription based articles. Can any one of you just tell me, if you are planning to submit a paper of yours, will open access journal be your priority? Will a subscription based journal be your priority? Or you will select a journal that has a hybrid policy of access? Anyone among you can just drop in the chat box. Like, I think you're all aware about the three terms. Open access simply means where a reader doesn't have to pay for accessing or viewing the articles, while our subscription-based articles or subscription-based journals are those journals which basically ask for a subscription fees, or we call simply a fee-based structuring is there. And hybrid has a fusion of both. So it provides access to both open access articles as well as subscription-based articles. So what will be your priority? Will you just have your papers, publish it in an open access journal or a subscription based journal or a hybrid based journal? Can any one of you just tell me? You can just drop it in the chat box. I would have really loved that if you would have been on the unmute mode so that you could have easily just answered my questions rather than writing it in the chat box. Still, like, if you're not comfortable, you can just put up the answer in the chat box. Okay, leave it. My priority will be open access, because if your article is available openly or freely, there will be better readership for the paper, and better readership means your papers will have better chances of getting cited. And if your papers are cited more, your H index will be increased, your I-10 index will be increased, and other academic indicators of yours as an author, they will be increased. But second priority will be sure hybrid based journal. And if a journal is not able to cater the needs of yours, both in an open access or a hybrid mode, your last priority should be a subscription based model, but ensure that it should never be on the quality compromise. So Dr. Rajni has also said that open access journals will be her priority, because your papers will be read by masses, they will have better readership, and there is a probability that there is a relationship that if your papers are read more, they will be cited more. Immediately after that, another factor that you should always take into consideration, in fact, okay, I'm extremely sorry, Dr. Rajni. I thought that, okay, it's, I really just apologize. I'm really sorry for that. My apologies. So, journal performance is something which we are all aware about, like how a journal is performing. So we always prioritize a journal that has a better impact factor. So whenever we just want to publish our research papers, can you just drop it in the chat box that how many of you are having a priority that whenever you just want to publish your research work, you always look for the first thing that you just look for is the impact factor. That what is the impact factor? Dr. Rajni, what is the impact factor? Dr. Nafisa, what is the impact factor? Dr. Shantanu, what is the impact factor? So your scholars will always just ask for, sir, we just want to make our paper, publish it in a particular journal like Botanical Review or Online Information Review or say Nature or Cell or Lancet. The first thing that comes into our mind, like, what is the impact factor of the journal? So impact factor or 5-year impact factor, they're basically speaking about the performance of a journal, that how academically or research wise a particular journal is prioritized. So you should always focus upon impact factor, 5-year impact factor of a particular journal. But apart from that, you should always try to prioritize the publication timelines, because many a times you might have faced this problem that you are submitting a research paper to any of the journals, but it doesn't respond back to your submission. Because say I submitted one of my papers right in April of 2022. Till date, I'm just continuously mailing them, but they never respond back. Have you ever faced that type of problem, that there was always a publication timeline delay from the journal? How many of you have just faced that problem of publication timeline delay over there? Have you ever faced that publication delay problem? Okay, someone has said yes, sir. Dr. Barnali has said that, yeah. So publication timeline is basically the decisions that are taken by the editorial board or the review board for your particular paper. So you should always try to prioritize a journal that has a good journal performance in terms of impact factor and 5-year impact factor. But at the same time, the publication timeline should be on a lower scale, like the decisions that are regarding your publications, the response time, the submission to the first decision timeline. So they should always be on a lower side. So if a journal A is there that is taking 20 days, like botanical review, from submission to the first decision, maybe another journal is there that all pertains to botany, which is taking 40 days. So which will be my priority? Shall I just prioritize a journal which has a lower publication timeline or a higher publication timeline? What should be your priority? Can you please drop in a message for me? One of the journals takes 20 days, right from the submission to the first decision, and another journal takes 40 days to take the same decision. Which will be your priority? Dr. Rajni, can you please tell me that what will be your priority? The one that is taking 20 days to take a decision, or the one that is taking 40 days to take a decision? Okay, surely I got the review time got delay, and you have to specify that it should be 20 days, and it is all correct. Very good. Because lower the time or lesser the time, better will it be for the author. Even if your manuscript is rejected or it has not been accepted, it will become easier for you within a lesser span of time to just basically shift it onto some other platform, so that some journal which will be fit for that specific paper of yours, you can just take your claim for that specific paper of yours. But make one thing sure, many of the journals don't have an impact factor, because we have good number of journals that are only Scopus indexed, but they don't have an impact factor, because impact factors are only allocated by Clarivate Analytics through its JCR database. JCR is basically a database that is responsible for providing the impact factors through its database journal citation reports. So impact factor should not be the only sole reason for selecting a journal, because many a times some of the journals have a very high impact factor because they only accept the review based articles. And whenever you are writing a review based article, I think I have the review articles in my lab or in my research score over there, and they have received better citations, because it has been confirmed that whenever you are writing a review based article, it basically magnetizes or catches more citations, and more citations simply mean the journal in which your paper has been published, it will also have a higher impact. So never get confused that if a journal doesn't have an impact factor, it's not bad, it's bad. But there are journals which don't have an impact factor, but still they are considered classical journals in their respective fields, because many a times you may fall a prey to some pseudo impact factors or the false impact factors. You might receive, or you might have received so many mails which basically ask for what? Your article publishing fee, and they claim that they have an impact factor of say 10, impact factor of 9, impact factor of 7, with a GIF impact factor or index Copernicus impact factor. But make one thing sure, they are all false impact factors. And you might have received so many mails like this. I'm damn sure that so many of you might have received mails which are basically like the way I have received this mail, that it's some like World Journal of Engineering Research and Technology. It has an impact factor of 5.924. Imagine that they wanted my paper long back in June 2022, and it was the same issue that was running at that particular period of time. See their policy of acceptance. उसी महीने में ये मेरे को एक इनविटेशन भेज रहे हैं, और उसी महीने में ये मेरा पेपर क्या कर रहे हैं? Accept kar rahe. So see the bad quality of the journal, and they're all pseudo or false impact factor journals. So what they have given rise to, they have given rise to the predatory journal phenomenon, which we should never fall a prey to, because these predatory journals, their main aim or motive is to simply grab the money from the researchers. I think many of you might have received the mails that you provide us 1500 rupees or 3000 rupees, we will publish your research in 2 days or in a week's time, or in many cases within 24 hours, your papers are accepted. How many of you have received that kind of response from the publishers? Can you please drop it in the chat box? Like, how many of you have received the mails from these predatory journals, which basically claim a very, what we call as false impact factor through GIF or index Copernicus, but at the same time, their main policy is to simply trap a new or a young publisher, sorry, a young author, and they usually ask for this money, which is their main priority. Even a science journal can publish an Urdu article. Even an Urdu-based journal can publish a Hindi article. So they don't look for the quality. Yeah, Dr. Shantanu has said that yes, number of such invitations, but we should never fall a prey to them, because it's all about money, money, and money for them. They never just look for the quality, they always compromise over the quality. So surely, what should we look for? We should look for a tool that will be helpful for all of us to explore what we call as a tool that is going to what we call as authenticate the impact factor. So we are all aware about a tool, JCR. Barnali Thakur has also said that many times the author has received these types of mails. So I think one of the best tools that you should make use of, it is through Web of Science. You are all aware about Web of Science is basically a fusion of many databases. It's a proprietary of Clarivate Analytics, and journal citation reports is a tool that we should be sensitized about. So once we are aware about journal citation reports, JCR, it will provide us with the impact factor. So if a journal is claiming that it has an impact factor, let we just rely upon JCR and get it cross-checked that whether the impact factor that is claimed by the journal, is it true or a false impact factor or an inappropriate impact factor. Dr. Rajni has said that there are outdated journals in Scopus and UGC care list that makes disappointed to us. I will always say never experiment with UGC care list, because I am myself working as a DCAP member in our university, and I could see so many of the journals that are available in the care list, because I feel that care list is now, it has now become a friendship, like a sort of like friendship or a bargaining affair now. Okay, there are some authorities at the care list committee over there who are even giving a green signal or a nod to the journals that are totally substandard or outdated journals, which can never be accepted on a quality platform over there. Talking about Scopus, Scopus also has a continuous policy of inclusion and exclusion. You might have seen that there are so many journals on annual basis that Scopus is filtering and just saying that we are not indexing the journals from this year. Even Scopus is one of the best tools that you should make use of. But once you feel that Scopus has it has delimited a particular journal, or it has just stopped a journal from getting indexed in it, never experiment with that type of journal. But never prioritize care list, because I saw care list as one of the dirtiest lists that has really, I think it has polluted the academia. Even we have journals in the care list that ask for money, because it's all based upon some sort of like friendship based affair, which care committee is much more promoting. So my priority should never be like in fact, your priority should never be care list. Yeah, Scopus is there, but always see that whether the journal is still included in the care, this Scopus, then experiment with it. If not, never experiment with the journal. So apart from this journal impact factor, we should also look in the JCR about the 5-year impact of the journal, because kabhi kabhi kya hota hai, this impact factor is an annual kind of activity and it goes on swinging from year to year. Maybe a journal which has a better or a promising impact factor for the current year, or it may have very bad type of impacts in the previous years. और वो डूबते हुए जहाज पे कोई सफर नहीं करना चाहता है. If your journal has a very bad kind of impact for the previous years, you should never experiment with it. I'm just playing on the screen of yours. Suppose there is a journal which has a 5-year impact story right from 2015 to 2019. Should this journal be prioritized by you or not? Because it's showing you a 5-year impact factor, which is accumulated impact factor, or speaks about the impact story of a journal, that whether it has a promising or dwindling type of impact story. Just tell me yes or no. Say, Dr. Rajni, if I give a priority to you, will you experiment with this kind of journal that is spanning on the screen of yours, which is showing the impact factor of a particular journal, A, B, or C, from 2015 to 2019? Will you prioritize this journal, or does this journal have a promising history? Can you please specify, or not? If there are others also, Dr. Barnali or Dr. Shantanu, can you please specify, will you prioritize this journal or not? I think for me, yeah, because right from 2015, okay, Dr. Rajni has said that, yes, I will do it, because Dr. Barnali has also said, yes, sir. Chalo, at least I just get a notion that all the participants are attentive. They are listening to my lecture. They're not bored. I don't know whether it's a boring or a good kind of lecture. So, but through the chat, I just get a notion that, okay, you are all attentive. You are listening carefully. So it's really good. It does look promising. Dr. Nasifa has also said that it does look promising. Yeah, this journal looks promising because it has a cumulative growth. It has an expensive growth. So it shows that except for 2018, all the years are showing an increasing type of growth. So my priority will be this journal. So you should always not only look for the current impact factor of the journal, but you should also look for the past history, because history is, I think, something very much important even about a person, because that determines the quality or the way a person would have been. So Dr. Anupam Sharma has said that your lecture is much more informative, sir. Thank you, Dr. Anupam. So apart from that, when a journal doesn't have an impact factor, Scopus is one of the tools that is basically again a proprietary of Elsevier. It also provides me some of the academic indicators for a journal like impact factor through JCR. We have Scopus that is basically providing us with the Scimago journal ranking phenomenon, and it gives me the details about a particular journal through SNP, IPP, and SJR. They are basically the academic indicators for a particular journal or a paper. So if you have a very better or a promising type of paper over there, you should look for a journal that has a better SNP, a better IPP, or a better SJR. But make one thing sure, apart from that, you should always take one thing into consideration, that if your paper is some sort of new finding or a new theory, like suppose if you have just come up with a paper that speaks about COVID-19 or SARS-CoV-2 or some drug that has been invented to curb the COVID-19 menace. So you should always try to prioritize a journal that has a high impact factor, a better publishing unit like Elsevier, Taylor and Francis, Wiley, or it should also have better metrics other than impact factor, like better IPP, better SNP. But if you feel that your paper is a carry-on study, like an incremental progress, you should always prioritize a lower impact journal or a very medium impact type of journal. So your paper is going to determine that whether you will experiment with a high impact factor journal or a very low impact factor journal. Then apart from that, journal finder tools are something, they're miraculous tools. So journal finder tools that are offered by many of the publishers like Springer, Elsevier, Taylor and Francis, Wiley, they help us to find an appropriate kind of journal from the entire portfolio of the publishing house. that is suggesting that particular suggester. See here how it works. Like Elsevier is providing us with the journal finder tool. How many of you have you used these journal finder tools? Anyone among you, either yes or no, you can just drop it in the chat box. Have you ever used these journal finder tools? So simply you have to type in the title of the paper and you have to put in the abstract of the paper, select to which field your paper belongs to, and automatically it will come up with the suggestions that these are the journals in which you can put up your paper or submit your paper. So journal finder helps you to find a large score of journals which can be appropriate enough for your paper to get published. Even accordingly, we have journal suggester, that is one of the tools by of Springer Nature. It also works on the same technology. Write the title of your manuscript, put in the manuscript in the specific box over there, select a subject accordingly, and it will provide you with the suggestive journals. But one thing very much problematic with these tools is that if I'm just looking for a journal suggester through Springer, don't you feel that it will only give me the suggestions that are from the Springer journal list? It won't give me the suggestions from other publishers. Am I right or wrong? If I'm making use of journal suggester of Springer, will it give me the suggestions from Elsevier journals? Will it give me the journal suggestions from Wiley? Yes or no? Because I can just get to feel that you're able to understand what I'm just chanting on the screen. Just a minute. Someone has chat. Okay. Dr. Bernali, Dr. Nasifa. Yeah, both of you are correct. Both Bernali as well as Nasifa. I don't know whether I'm pronouncing the name properly. So just a minute, please. Both of you are correct because it will only give me the suggestions from Springer, and it is a sort of like localizer type of service. Say suppose some 10 or 15 years ago, when there was no concept of those shopping malls, suppose I was supposed to buy a jacket, तो मैं कहाँ जाता था जैकेट लाने के लिए? या अगर मेरे को परफ्यूम लानी थी तो मैं कहाँ जाता था? So I will just go to the garment shop or the shop that was basically selling the jackets or the cardigans over there. Or say suppose if I was interested in buying some electric appliances, I just went to a shop like Philips or National Panasonic or say Murphy or some other shop over there. Now we have a concept of shopping malls. Is it like shopping malls is all about what it is? You're just able to purchase everything under one single roof. So when you just enter a shopping mall like the Great Shopping Mall, or we have good shopping malls in Delhi, not the good ones in Kashmir because they're very much localizer type of shopping malls in Kashmir, but I could see good number of shopping malls that really promising ones in Mumbai or Delhi or even in Hyderabad. I could see good shopping malls over there. So we are able to purchase each and every stuff under one single roof. Now, don't you feel that we should have some sort of consolidated service which will help me to select the journals from Elsevier, from Springer, from Wiley, from Nature, from say Kluwer or Sage or Oxford? Surely yes. And we have a wonderful service by the name of Manuscript Matcher. So we have a Manuscript Matcher service that is provided by Web of Science through its Clarivate Analytics publisher there. And what we are supposed to do, simply put in the title in the Manuscript Matcher there and put in the abstract. And this manuscript matcher helps you to find the most related journals from your manuscript, and it spans its or it executes or federates its search across all the leading publishers like Elsevier, Springer, Nature, Sage, Emerald, Taylor and Francis, or any other leading publisher. Suppose in this case, I have just written a particular title of a paper like first assessment of pteridophytes composition on conservation status in Myanmar. Accordingly, I just pasted the abstract of the specific paper, and once I click find the journal, see how it works. It will give me the suggestions. Are you able to see? on the screen? Like, can you please put in the chat box which is the journal first, the first journal that is appearing on the screen, which this manuscript matcher is suggesting? Can you please drop it in the chat box so that I will just be able to understand that you have a visualization on your screens also. So it is giving me a match score also, and match score is basically a scoring that happens between your paper and the underlying journals over there, and it just goes on decreasing, so that the journals that are appearing in the first instances, they are highly suggestive, and you will be able to see that they are from different publishers. Like the first one is from MDPI, the second one is from Springer, the third one is from PRG Group, and there are so many suggestions. So the first one is sustainability for this specific paper of mine. Second one is environmental science and pollution research. The third one is PRJ. So Manuscript Matcher is a consolidated service that is really a wonderful service that you should experiment with. Now, once you are done with, now you have selected that, okay, this is the journal or this is the journal which is good for me. Now starts the actual process, that is the writing process, that you have to prepare your manuscript. And preparation of the manuscript, it is highly technical and skillful component or a phase of your research. Whenever you are just writing a manuscript of yours, always go through the guide for authors, because editors will never waste their time in a manuscript or a paper that has been poorly prepared, that has been poorly structured. So you should focus on the basics or the fundamentals of a research paper, starting from the very basics, like what is the title of your manuscript. And when you are writing the title of your manuscript, it should be all easy, it should be all clear. It shouldn't be flowery or ornamental. So if it pertains to a particular subject, you should be able to depict or visualize the main subject of your research paper in your title, because your title is basically a branded vision of your paper. It's basically a marketing platform or a marketing point of your research. So your title is going to speak about what is the subject content or the thought content of your paper. So you should be all simple and highly subjective in your title. It should never be flowery or ornamental, that people should not be able to understand the title of yours. So you should always focus on the what we call as simplicity and subjectivity of your title. Then apart from that, the authors should have a sequential outlook, because nowadays many of the journals always ask for, like, what is the role of a particular author in a manuscript. Have you ever received from any of the editors or from any of the publishers that if you have a team of 5 authors for a particular paper, what is the role or the responsibility of a particular author, or say author A, author B, or author C with that specific journal or with that specific paper? Because you should be all aware about the authorship pattern, like who will be the corresponding author, who is the first author, who is the second author, so that you can never become a victim of falsification or data breach or authoritativeness breach in a research paper writing over there. Keywords should be selected with utmost care and importance. And whenever it comes to the keywords, they are basically the selective words by which your paper, if accepted, it will be what we call as navigated by the researchers in the near future over there. So you should always make use of a thesaurus. You are all aware about thesaurus. How many of you have used thesaurus as a tool for word replacements? Because thesaurus is basically one of the vocabulary control tools by which you may get some synonymous terms for a particular term. Say, suppose if I'm just writing something on birds, so the zoological name of birds is aves. If I'm just writing something on snakes, so snakes is something that is like, it has a zoological concept, like it belongs to the reptiles category over there. Is it? If I'm just talking about human beings, they have a zoological name like Homo sapiens. If I'm just talking about a word like mango, so if I'm just talking about the botanical name of mango, it's Magnifera if it pertains to Indian mango. So Magnifera indica. If I'm just talking about saffron, so it's much more like a productive stuff of our Kashmir. saffron. I don't know whether you are aware about that. So it has a botanical name like Crocus sativus. So, or if I'm just talking about rice or Rhiza sativa, so it has some word replacements. And like, who's going to give you that? It is the thesaurus that will surely help you to have better keywords for your research paper. Abstract should be all informative, and it should have main focus on what the purpose of the study, the methodology that you have adopted, and what were the main findings of your research. Then apart from that, the body of the text. Always ensure that you should segment the body of the text of your whole manuscript, because that will give a vibe to the readers or the people who are interested in your papers that you have segmented your research paper. Suppose if you are writing something on, say, independence of India. Okay, will it be just writing something in a lengthier way regarding the independence of India, or you will just have it segmented like the Mughal era or the British era or what after independence? So I think that will be much better if you are segmenting the independence phenomenon under different segments, because people will be interested to know what a particular phase of independence represented in the Indians' independence history over there. Then apart from that, your methods or the experimental methods or the materials that you have used in your research, they should be specified very much clearly, because the methodological sophistication or the way you put up your methodology, that is of utmost importance, that you should be very much clearer about your methodology. Then the results, discussions, and conclusions, they should be all deductive in their approach. And you should always focus on the acknowledgements that whosoever has helped you in your research, and you should also put up the references. And I think nowadays referencing has become very much easier. And thanks to all the reference and citation management softwares, I'm sure that you might have used, like Mendeley or EndNote or Referx, anyone who has used these reference and citation management softwares, because I think they have just made your referencing and citation part of your research papers very much easier and like very much comfortable for you. Anyone among you who has used these softwares? Okay, let's move on. Now comes the language quality, especially many a times your papers get rejected because of poor language quality, that we are not focusing on the language. So you should always be focusing on a language that is simple and easy to understand, and be consistent with either the British English or the American English, because many a times when we are writing the papers, it becomes a fusion of both American and British based English, which will surely land us into trouble. So always avoid that type of English. Be consistent. If a journal is asking for a British based English, be with that, or if it is asking for an American English, just clinch to that. Apart from that, we have some of the services that can always help in the improvement of your language. So we have Webshop, that is one of the miraculous service of Elsevier that basically helps to improve the quality of your manuscript. So they have their own language editors, a team of language editors that basically help in the improvisation of your manuscript. And even many a time, some of the journals try to prioritize the papers in their respective or own indigenous languages, like they don't publish anything apart from Chinese or Portuguese, Arabic, Russian, German, Italian, or even Korean there. So Webshop also provides you with the translation services. How many of you just belong to the scientific disciplines whereby we are just dealing with the illustrations? If I'm just talking about the biological sciences, so we usually just draw illustrations like mitosis or meiosis. We have to draw the images about the gestation period or heart or lungs, how the blood transfusion happens or how blood circulation happens. So we are many a times drawing some sort of illustrations for our paper. Even Elsevier's web shop comes up with the illustration services. They have professional illustrators that help us to come up with better drawings. Same is applicable for Sage, Wiley. They also have these language and figure formatting services that surely help our research papers to become much more what we call as standardize it and tone with what a particular journal asks for. Grammarly is one of the brilliant services that really did wonders for my writings. And I always advocate and ask my scholars or youngsters to go on with Grammarly because it is as easy as anything. Simply, you have to upload your manuscript, the one that is blinking in yellow, select a language in which you're supposed to write your paper, be it American English, British, Canadian English, or Australian English. Once that job is done, automatically your paper is uploaded. And once your paper is uploaded, you have to select a goal of yours, like what type of audience you are writing for, like what should be the what we call as the colloquial way of writing your paper, like what type of domain you are writing for, and what should be the tone of your writings. Accordingly, once the goals have been set, it becomes easier for Grammarly to correct your paper in terms of language. So it will look for word replacements, grammatical errors, wherever you have missed a preposition or a conjunction. If it many a times looks for the sentence replacements, that it feels that okay, the sentences are not promising enough, they don't like suit the way they should have been written. So the way you are seeing on the screens, if a grammatical error or a spelling error or a prepositional error or even a sentence based error is there in your manuscript, it automatically cleanses it and gives a better shape in terms of language, because language is one of the communicative ways by which your papers are basically read or they're understood by the people. So better language means better communication is there from your side. Paper True is again one of the best services that is used by businessmen, academic circles, even authors also make use of. You can even just use Paper True as a service for improving the language quality when you are just applying or creating some sort of resume or covering letters. Paper True also works on the same phenomenon that you have to upload your document, an editor will be assigned for your paper, editing and the proofreading will be just done. You have to ultimately download the paper, look for the quality check, and it will be reviewed by the senior editor. And just imagine the quality of the paper that has been just improvised or that has been chiseled or polished by the language editors. I will skip some of the slides. Even many a times when I'm just talking about uh, okay, ethics now. So ethics have to play a significant role whenever you are writing the research papers. So ethics is basically a sort of like boundary line, एक लक्ष्मण रेखा होती है. I think you're all aware about what Lakshman Rekha is all about. जो लक्ष्मण ने सीता के इर्द गिर्द like डाली थी, because when she was in that forest over there and they were supposed to visit some place, and he drew a line and he asked Sita not to cross that specific line. So Lakshman Rekha is a sort of boundary which every researcher has to follow. So you have to be very much ethical in your approaches. So there are so many ethical guidelines that a researcher is supposed to follow if you belong to the biological sciences. So we have to follow various ethical committees like human subject or animal ethics committee, or the one like prevention of cruelty to animals. We can kill the animals for the sake of our experiments or a healthy animal. Even authorship disputes should be also taken into consideration. Sex and gender equality in research. So we should be gender sensitive in the research. For that, we should be aware about the sacred guidelines. Conflict of interest should not be there in the papers. You should always avoid plagiarism, because we have so many plagiarism related softwares that automatically detect the similarity, and you get fall, or you're just falling a prey to this menace of plagiarism. Always avoid research frauds, avoid simultaneous submission, and you should always put on the confidentiality and anonymity of your respondents. You can't disclose their personal information. Even publishing ethics, they span across. You should avoid plagiarism, no informed consent. So there are some of the ways by which the ethical guidelines can be looked upon. Okay, just a minute. Once you have written your paper, always stress on the revisions. You should always see that whenever you are writing something, always revise that, because revision is very much important, because now you're supposed to submit your research paper, and you should always stress on the checklist. Checklist simply means what a particular journal asks from a particular researcher. So if you have an ORCID account, always open the ORCID account, because it will consolidate all your papers at one common place, because it usually happens with the females, because once they get married, many a times they have the surnames of their husbands later on. So kalko, when their works are seen, some of the works prior to their marriage and post marriage, they are counted separately. So ORCID gives you a unified identification that you are recognized by your ORCID, not by your name. And it is really wonderful that whenever you are submitting your research papers to any of the publishers, go through ORCID, not through your names. And when I'm just talking about ORCID, once you're done with that, we have online submission systems that are offered by the global publishers like Wiley or Emerald, Springer. Dr. Manoj, am I supposed to complete my talk on 11:30? Dr. Manoj, am I?
Yes, sir. By 11:30, next speaker will be there.
Sure. Okay. So it is as simple as anything, that you have to just create a login ID in which the login credentials will be demanded. So it's free to use. You can create an account, put up a login credential of yours, your username and password, and automatically you can just look for like what a particular journal asks for. Usually the journals ask for an anonymous manuscript, tables and pictures, either as a part of the manuscript or a separate entity over there, the author biographies, notes for editors or reviewers. If you feel the supplementary content can be also advocated, and a covering letter should be there. Then automatically, once you have submitted your paper, so surely you will just go through the specific process of peer review, which is usually just considered as very dangerous and troublesome for an author, but usually it helps all of your works to get an improved outlook, because they give their comments, they give their suggestions, and automatically it's a sort of improvement of your manuscript. So this thing happens that all the editors and the reviewers look for the quality of your manuscript, and ultimately either it can be an open type of peer review, single blind peer review, or a double blind peer review can be there, which basically ensures the quality of your manuscript. Even transparent peer reviews are also there, or we may have collaborative peer reviews. Reviews can be of invited or opposite nature. I have to run because I have to complete it by 11:30. And once your papers have been reviewed, it will be on the basis of these set criteria: originality, importance, international relevance, or the coverage, methodological sophistication, analytical component, interpretations, or the conclusions, your writing style, and the originality. So either your papers will receive a major revision or a minor revision, or a rejection can happen, or acceptance can also be there if you're lucky enough, and automatically many a times there are split decisions also. Some of the reviewers may accept your paper, or other reviewer may reject your manuscript. So once the review has been just like it has been received, make one thing sure: even if a rejection happens for your paper, never get dejected, because rejection is not something like very much cruel type of activity in the research. It's all about redirection, because there is some sort of problem with your paper still there, which needs to be reconsidered or redirected. So once that is done, always feel that you don't get bored with the reviewers. You should always be engaged with the reviewers, always just cross check what reviewers has said, always reply to their comments. That will make you much more closer to the reviewers in understanding what your paper is all about. Discuss your revisions with your mentors, with your peers, and always put a vote of thanks to your peer reviewers. So once you have submitted your paper, you can just see the current status of your paper, like where it is. Is it still lying with the reviewers? Is it lying with the editor? Is it awaiting the reviewer scores? So there are the status strategies that can be visualized in the online submission systems there. So once you receive an acceptance note, that you will always receive a sort of like congratulations now. Like congratulations for what? That your paper, falana paper, it has been accepted for this specific journal. And usually we become happy that, okay, this is the end of the story. But no, there is another phase after acceptance. Like what next? So once your papers have been accepted, ensure that you always prioritize those journals which are having uh, an in-press phenomenon with them. It's a sort of like anticipatory services. Prior to having a volume number or an issue number, it is made online prior to the assignment of a volume number or an issue number. Don't you feel that if your paper is supposed to come in the March 2023, but still it is available online, it will surely ensure that people will read your paper as an anticipatory service of Elsevier or Lancet for that reason there. So article in press service is the same anticipatory service by which your papers are launched online prior to the assignment of their volume numbers or issue numbers. And like in case of Emerald, it's the early sight phenomenon. So it is giving an early readership for your papers over there. And whenever your papers are accepted, always do the proofreading, because many a times even the author proofs have corrections that are to be made from the author side. So once you are done with your work, it has been now assigned with the volume number and the issue number and the page number, you have to promote your work. When you just get your article published, they provide you with the author links over there. Share those links in what? All the social networking sites, via your emails, with your friends, with your colleagues, because once you share your works on social media, it's basically the voice of the people. There are much more audiences on the social media, and people will read your papers more and more. So, and once papers are read by the larger audiences, it automatically speaks that your papers will be cited more and more and more. Always discuss your papers in the conferences. Like it's not my name is Khan. So my name is Sameer, my name is Ranjan, my name is say Nafisa. So surely you should always discuss your papers in the conferences, because people will get sensitized about your works, and that will give a sort of temptation to them, like what Mr. Sameer has written, what Mr. Shantanu has written, what Dr. Rajni has written. So that will help to promote your works. Even if your institutions have the institutional repositories, mount your the mount the preprints of your research papers on your institutional repositories. Then you can just monitor even the impact of your paper. And to monitor the impact of your paper, you should always focus upon tools like Scopus, ResearchGate, Impact Story, or Elements platform, Web of Science, Google Scholar, because they speak about your citation scores, they speak about your H index, they speak about your I-10 index. So these are the tools by which you will be able to know that whether your research work is making an impact or not. Apart from that, you should also focus on the altimetric, because many a times your papers won't get the citation scores. Does that mean that your papers are not good or they're not of quality? No, because nowadays we are also seeing that how much impactful your research is on the social media. If your paper is liked more, if it has been discussed on Mendeley or social networking sites like Facebook or Twitter more, nowadays we just talk about the altimetric scores also. So you should always prioritize those journals which have altimetric scores embedded in them, because your papers will be now socially discussed. Even if you don't get citations for your papers, and if it is having a better altimetric score, nowadays policymakers or funding agencies also see that how much societal impact your research papers are making. So with these words, I will just end that difficult never means that it is impossible. It always means that it is you and only you who can just work hard. And by that word, the Charles Darwin was all correct in saying that it's not the strongest of the species that survive, not the most intelligent, but the ones who are most responsive to the change. The way a mother basically embraces every son of hers एक माँ जो होती है उसको रावण भी पसंद था. रावण तो बहुत ही एक नेगेटिव इमेज हमारे इंडिया में है. इज इट लाइक एवरीवन व्हेनेवर वी जस्ट टॉक अबाउट रावण, सो रावण बहुत ही एक नेगेटिव इमेज है. तो एक माँ को रावण भी पसंद था और उस एक माँ को राम पसंद था. तो बिल्कुल आपको एक माँ की तरह बनना है. यू हैव टू बी लाइक अ मदर. whether your papers are accepted, whether they are rejected, whether they get a major revision or a minor revision, you should always embrace the revisions like a mother, because माँ को कभी गुस्सा नहीं आता है. Is it like all of us just have mothers in our lives and we are blessed that हमारी माएँ है. अल्लाह ताला उनको लंबी उम्र दे, उनकी सेहत रखे. वो वो हर एक चीज हमारा टॉलरेट करती है. इज इट हमारा गुस्सा सब कुछ हमारा टॉलरेट करती है और उफ भी नहीं करती है. इसी तरह जब भी हमें रिविजन्स हमारे पेपर को आए, वी शुड ऑलवेज रिसीव देम लाइक अ मदर, अ वार्म मदर, स्पेशली व्हेन इट कम्स टू द रिजेक्शन. इज इट in that way you will always feel that okay, I can just handle this manuscript. और उस तरीके से क्या होगा, you will just have a beautiful papers of yours. So with these words, I just want your institutions to have better papers from your side, and it was really wonderful to be a part of your academic endeavor. So with these words, I thank all of you for wonderfully listening to my lecture and giving me an opportunity to share my experiences with all of you.
Thank you, Dr. Sumeer, for a very informative and interesting lecture. Actually, no, I was so much impressed. This is a first time actually. After phone, we talk sometimes, and through social media we are connected with each other. But first time I listen your lecture, and really it is a great experience for me. As a in both the way, as in form of the content as well as the presentation. Okay, the example you took, really it is appreciable. So thank you so much, sir, for giving your valuable time and very informative lecture for all of us, useful for all of us. And as dear participant, as I mentioned you about Dr. Sumeer in the beginning, he is one of the best researcher in the library science, working very hard and publishing very good journal. That's why I invite him to share his experience with the participant. So with this, already we are running behind the time. So thank you so much. And again, now you will be the permanent resource person for our refresher course in your university. Now it is online, and when campus will open, UGC will allow us. Definitely, I will call you physically so that we can meet here. So with this, my office will contact you, sir, after some days, okay, for the official formality. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And thanks to all the participants for being wonderful during the whole session. And special thanks to Dr. Manoj Kumar for giving me this opportunity to just get my state connected with yours and like all across India. So it was really wonderful. And thank you once again. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. So, dear participant, already we are running behind time. So without wasting